Hey guys, bringing you another episode here on election week, and just sat down with Gina Collias. Super fun conversation. It was really interesting to hear her perspective as being a dirt lawyer or a dirt attorney. She's also an agent and an attorney here in North and South Carolina. So it was really fun to kind of hear her perspective on things. We also chatted about healthcare, some real estate items, and it was fun to hear some of her deeper connections here to the Asheville area. So tune on into this episode, share with your friends, and most importantly, get out there and vote. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the show. I'm here joined with Gina. Gina, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm Gina Collias, and I am running for Congress.
Absolutely. No, and that's what we're here to talk about is, about you and your campaign. So before we even get into the campaign, it'd be great to hear a little bit about you and how you ended up here in this part of the state, and unless this is home for you and always has been.
Well, I am from North Carolina. I have grown up in North Carolina. I've reared my children in North Carolina. Intend to grow old in North Carolina, and really pretty much everything from Charlotte West are my stomping grounds. So in Charlotte, I went to St. Gabriel's Catholic School from kindergarten through 8th grade, so with the nuns and priests, and then I went to a high school and that's where I met my husband. And so we were high school sweethearts, and we dated for 9 years. We've been married 29 years. This June will be 30 years.
Wow.
And we have 3 children. So I have identical twin girls that are 23, and my son is 16, and he's in high school in Asheville.
I saw he likes playing soccer, which... Big fan of that over here. That's my sport of choice as well. So.
Yes, we love soccer at my house, and I'm kind of partial to FC Barcelona.
Oh, okay.
We and I can say Manchester United too. Love them. But we are big soccer, and he does HFC soccer.
Okay, very cool.
And then he's been doing the ski team at Catalucci.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so I think this week is going to be the last week. Last week was like a little too rainy.
There's been a lot of rain recently.
But they got good skiing in up there. So
good. Yeah.
It was really nice.
I always find that it's kind of hit or miss on conditions sometimes out here. But kind of get it when you can. Not a lot of alternatives.
Yeah, no, he loves that. And what's really neat, I can just kind of mention about that area in Waynesville and with Canton and that whole area is that my son's always gone to Camp Daniel Boone.
Oh, okay.
With the Boy Scout camp. Yeah. And 2 years ago, he was a CIT, and then this past summer, he was a staff counselor. So he worked all summer, and then every Saturday I could come pick them up because it was the break between the new scouts coming. So they all know the best Waffle Houses around because that's what teenage boys like.
Waffle House brings back. So I totally deviating, but it's okay. I worked as a raft guide on the Nantahala River.
Oh.
Maybe 9 years ago or whatnot, and Waffle House really that was like our splurge day. I was like, oh, okay, we got some time off. Let's go have a good dinner.
And it's open 24 hours, so they would go at like 3 a.m. because then they had to start with the scouts at 7. Yeah. So they would go at 3 or 4 and then come back. So so from all that, so I've had in real estate. Real estate has kind of been a common theme for my life. My grandmother was a broker, a real estate broker. My mother was a real estate broker. Okay. And it was just natural for me to get my broker's license.
So you did get your broker's license?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a North Carolina broker. I have a North Carolina real estate license and a South Carolina real estate license. I'm an attorney in North Carolina and an attorney in South Carolina.
Wow, it's a lot of different things to get involved in. So before you started running, what was that your main focus was? Were you attorney, broker, a little bit of both, or how did?
Well, I call myself a dirt lawyer.
Okay,
how's that?
So
that's
a lot
real
of land?
Estate.
Yeah,
a lot of land. I like land has. Everybody does in real estate. They have different divisions, and I do commercial real estate. But I'm a member of the CRCBR. I'm a member of CCIM. I'm a member of the CMLS. And so I have, I do a little bit of residential. I end up finding people get me with lake homes. Okay. So I help them with that. But otherwise, I do commercial real estate, and I work with a group called Trad Commercial, which practices in Charlotte, Spartanburg, and Myrtle Beach. And they're actually like the largest Myrtle Beach real estate company. And so that's been good. And the man that I work with is right now currently the head of CCIM Global.
Okay. Wow. So you've had lots of good experiences then in that world. It seems
Yes,
like,
yes. And
well, we could do a whole show about that, I'm
but
sure.
that's why I'm excited about the real estate.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, so what happened or didn't happen, or why did you decide to run for office and change focuses?
Okay, well, that is a very good question, and I'll tell you what happened. It was the 2016 election is what happened, and what I found out that was unsettling to me is that North Carolina gets, we have 13 congressional districts and we have 2 senators. So we get 15 electoral college votes. You get the 13 plus the 2. And 7 of the 15 people had sworn under oath that they lived in a congressional district that didn't match their voter registration card.
Really?
Yes, really.
Oh.
And I thought, well, that's not good. Because I'm an attorney, and you can't do that. You can't swear under oath and send it up to the Secretary of State, and at the time, Governor McCrory, and then say, you know, you don't live there. And so they voted for Trump in November, and on December 19th, when all the all the electors, but all the electoral college around the whole country votes on December 19th, they were in a different congressional district. Well, that didn't happen here, and I can attest to that because I have gerrymander whiplash. I started running, you know, Asheville was divided into 2 districts between the 10th and the 11th, and we have had a house in Fairview for 16 years. We've had a house in Cleveland County for 20 years, which is in the 10th district. So I had 2 places in 10. So it was easy for me to circle around the district, and I put 100,000 miles on my car circling around. Some days I would go counterclockwise and some days I'd go clockwise, but I would make it all the way around. And on December 2nd, that all changed. And the maps changed. And so now my house in Kings Mountain is in District 5, and my house in Fairview is in 11. And because I wake up in the morning in 11, this is where I am. So doing that.
So that was the decision to stay running in 11 and not.
Yeah, because I had been running in 10. And when I jumped in, it was, you know, they were like, and they put McHenry, I mean, think about this for real estate. They put him in a new 10 that we can't get to because it is over Lake Norman, goes to the North Carolina-Virginia line, and heads east towards Raleigh.
Yeah, there's no reason to.
You can't get there. So this is why I'm here. So going back to answer your question about once I found out that 7 of our 15 college electors, basically the books have been cooked. And that's not okay for any party.
Yeah.
Because I believe in the rule of law. I believe in the Constitution. And my sense of justice was offended. And it was funny, too, because I was telling somebody this the other day, and I said, maybe I have an overdeveloped sense of justice. And they said, no, Gina, I think you just have a normal sense of justice. I said, I'll take that. It's a normal sense of justice. And
so the elections happen, and you were just like, something's got to happen.
Something's got to happen. So what I did, and here's one more thing. It's like I was listening to Sheriff Quentin Miller talk the other day, and he said, what did you know, when did you know it, and what did you do about it? So what I knew was what I just told you about those electors. And what did I do about it? I got a legal team together, about 15 attorneys, 15 paralegals. I was one of 5 core attorneys, and we researched all 50 states, and we found 50 invalid electors. So that meant that not only did Trump not get the popular vote by 3 million votes, he didn't get the electoral college vote. And he was getting ready to be put in as president on an electoral college vote that was not true. And I knew it was not true. So what I did, then you say, what did I do about it? What I did is after we researched, because we researched red and blue states. So then what I did is we sent 1,200 pages of evidence to the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Wow. And
I expected them to say, thanks, you did, I did my civic duty. And they didn't answer us. They didn't
no
respond.
Response one way or the other?
No response. And we sent it, like I know they got it. And they just ignored us. And I was like, wow. So I got on the phone and I called all 100 senators, and I left messages and talked to their staff and said, hey, here's the information. This is critical. Our democracy is at stake. We have to do the right thing, no matter what party you're in, because I had been a registered Republican.
I'm gonna ask you about that in a minute.
Yeah, and I ended up switching.
This is so good. Yeah,
I ended up switching to the Democratic Party, but at the time I was a Republican, and I said, Republicans, no matter what party you're in, I have values, and truth and justice and all that is integrity. That should be our number one concern, and we should put our country over party. And so when The senators didn't do anything. I gave it to all the House reps too. So all 435. And seven Democratic House reps stood up for us and said, thank you for your work. And then they had their general counsels look at it, which is what should happen, because I submitted evidence. Is it true? Is it not true? They're supposed to decide. And it's just like you can't have an impeachment trial without witnesses and evidence, because as an attorney, you can't have a trial without witnesses or evidence. You might as well just fold. It's a fold.
Right.
And so the congressional rules are simple. The congressional rules say one senator and one House member, just one, to say, hey, let's look at what this lady brought us. And not one senator would do that. And if they had followed the law and said, we want to protect our Constitution and our democracy, and we want to just look and see if this is true, the congressional rules are really simple. It requires 2 hours of debate in the House and the Senate per elector. So as a country, we had the right to listen to 100 hours of debate in the House and 100 hours of debate in the Senate. We should have been watching it on C-SPAN. And we didn't get that right. We didn't get that. And so they ratified those college electors knowing that these people were not where they were supposed to be on January 6, 2017. And let me tell you the breakdown of those 50.
Okay.
19 people had problems with not living in the correct congressional district. But the rest of those 50 were dual office holders. And what that means is you can't do it in the U.S. of A. You can't be president and governor of a state. You can't be senator and mayor of your town. It's not allowed. And being a college elector is an elected office. So Pam Bondi, Attorney General of Florida, it's an elected position.
Right.
She was on Trump's transition team. She was just on Trump's impeachment defense. She signed as a college elector for Florida. That's illegal. And she knew it, and she did it anyway.
Wow.
Okay? And those senators ratified it. And the governor of South Dakota signed. The attorney general of South Dakota signed. It's not okay. So that's what got my dander up in a big way.
Yeah.
And it also, my daughters who are now 23, they were like, everything, this is not okay. Fix this, Mom. And it's that as a parent, you want, I want it to honor that. I want to honor that. And my kids were like, fix this. And so that is the crux of how I got involved. But it was from that point, really right after that, I said, okay, I've done all I can do. I gave it to them. I gave them the information. They didn't act on it.
Because I imagine that was no small feat to put together
day
that sort
and
of
night, except for Christmas Day. I felt like I'd gone back to college. We were pulling all-nighters the whole way through.
Wow.
And so then that kind of takes us to June. And my friend who was going through stage 4 ovarian cancer comes back to North Carolina. She was my god sister. My mother was her godmother. And she says, she's in remission, and she says, how come you're not on Facebook anymore, Gina? And I'm like, because I turned it off. And she's like, no, you get back on. And so I just like, well, you just fought for your life for cancer. The least I can do is get on Facebook.
Yeah.
So I did. And that night I was like, well, what am I going to do on Facebook? So I started a group called Rational Republicans. And the premise of the group is that the Republican Party's been hijacked, that we are pro-choice, that we do want to help our environment, and that the media is the true checks and balances of our politicians. And from that group, on July 3rd, I made it went from a secret group because I had like 14 friends. Yeah. I made it a closed group, and on July 4th I had 444 people.
Wow. And
now there's over 4,000 people. And it is a closed group, but anybody's welcome to join. It's just they have to have a connection to the U.S. Right. They have to have real Facebook friends. And because I've had like 100 people in one day from Bangladesh. Like, that's a troll farm. So we that's why we keep that out. But the main thing and the tenet of this group that has been the guiding force for me for running for Congress has been civil discourse. There are no memes. There's no hate speech. There's no cussing. It's just it's conversation. And I can be a very fierce advocate, but I can use my words. Right. And I can use them in a civil manner. And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or unaffiliated, civil discourse is what this country's missing. We have bullies already. We don't need any more. We need to get some adults in the room. We need to have conversations. We need moderates. I am the only moderate woman on the Democratic side running for Congress. And from that, it was until December of 2017 when I finally said, okay, I'll run for Congress. I'm going to run. It just didn't occur to me before then. It wasn't on my to-do list. And as a Republican, I ran against McHenry in the Republican primary. I took 14 to 20% of the vote. Those are disaffected Republicans who know something's wrong. Those are unaffiliated voters in a hardcore primary. And I reached those people. And as we're running in District 11, Asheville may be a bubble of blue, but it's in a sea of red.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel I'm the most electable person, because I can welcome disaffected Republicans. I can welcome unaffiliated, and I welcome Democrats.
Yeah. So many places we can go with that, but I watched your video on your site introducing. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed watching it.
Thank you.
And
I ran against Meadows for 3 days.
Then it all changed. But
Yeah.
you opened up talking about Lillian Clement.
Yes.
And I thought it was really, like, it made a lot of sense why you did that. And so I don't know if you want to say anything about it, but it seems like you resonated with her, or she
I do
inspired
resonate.
you in a way.
I do resonate with her
wanted to ask you about
because
that.
because there has never been a woman elected to Congress from District 11 from Western North Carolina, and it's 2020, and women only represent 24% of the House and the Senate. And we're 51% of the population. And the only way to have real change and to have that cultural change is to have our Congress reflect the people.
Yeah.
And so women, there need to be women there. And that's why I thought it was so important to start out that way.
That makes sense.
And I'll say one other thing too.
Please.
In the 2018 election, I started, my first event was at the Women's March in Asheville.
Okay.
And I started there, and I'm very passionate.
Was that intentional or coincidental?
Well, I was invited to speak,
Okay.
and I was very proud to speak. So it was nice. It was nice. But I did say, I was very glad to be there, and I was well received.
Awesome. Yeah, I bet that must have been pretty special. When because you've been on the campaign trail for a while now, right?
Yes.
So between both.
Yes.
How many is it? I'm trying to do my math in my head. So it's like 2.5 years.
Well.
Is that
it was for that 2018 through the primary. And then I thought I was done again, just like I thought I was done after the Electoral College. And then this year, in talking to friends and family, they were like, no, you should do this again. But I just said the only way I'm going to do it is as a Democrat.
Okay. On this time around, your second, has there been anything that surprised you about the process, or is there?
Well, the gerrymandering. The maps.
Well, yeah.
The whiplash from the maps. The old District 10 was divided into 3 separate districts. That's crazy. And it's purposeful. It was on December 2nd. They're changing stuff over the holidays. People aren't thinking about politics over the holidays. And they moved our primary, which before was May 8th, because they're like, oh, we want to make it more important to be on Super Tuesday on March 3rd.
Yeah.
But it's like, that just cuts the time down for everybody, for people to get to know who the candidates are and to vote. It's voter suppression.
Yeah, it's been a quick turnaround. As you've kind of gone through this process, you've met with so many people, I'm sure.
Yes.
Wondering if there's been a common theme or question that people have been asking you, or are curious, or an issue that weighs on
The issue that weighs on everyone's mind is health care.
Okay.
Because we all want our children to be healthy. And that is a common thread for whatever party you're in. And so I proposed Medicare for all who want it, which is a middle of the road, kind of Pete Buttigieg has kind of come out. And it's good because I have a philosophy, and it's my personal philosophy, but it's what I believe. I believe that people really psychologically have a fear of loss, and I think that's proven with everything. Right. But with healthcare, they don't want you taking their health insurance away. But there are so many people who don't have health insurance, and we have to raise them up, and we can include them, and we can have a public option that competes with private insurance. I have one of my children had one medicine that costs $4,000 a month. And when she's lucky to be on our insurance, but when she gets kicked off our insurance, how's she going to pay for that? And I know I can't pay for that for her.
Yeah.
And there are so many people that I meet, and I have family and friends who can't afford the ACA. They can maybe pay for it for like 3 months of the year, and then they have no insurance until the time to enroll again. in December. And so we are a better country than that, and we can do better. So that resonates. There are many people that are very serious about the environment. I'm very serious about the environment. I am so happy that Greta Thunberg has raised a generation to awaken about our climate crisis. And we do need to do things with that. We need to be back in the Paris Climate Agreement. We're not an island. We're not a fascist state. We're not a nationalist state. We are a representative democracy, and we have allies that we have nurtured through World War I and World War II and throughout our history, and we have to keep them. And we can't isolate ourselves because we make ourselves inconsequential, and that's not okay either. So being in the Paris Climate Accord, getting the lobbyists out of the EPA, getting incentives for wind and solar, encouraging green energy, that's important. But that's another place. I mean, there's people that are going to say, oh, the Green New Deal. And I'm like, no. We want to focus on the environment. It's a great conversation. It's good to start the conversation. Right. But I'm not for that. I'm a moderate. Right. And I'm saying we have to take a moderate approach. And it does the same thing with guns. I'm a gun owner. Yeah. I have a concealed carry permit. But 98% of us, whether you are a Democrat, unaffiliated, or Republican, everybody, we all agree to background checks. And when I got my concealed carry, I submitted to a training class and to a background check. Right. And so, we can all do that. And I tell people too, my fingerprints are everywhere from my bar licenses. I've been, they got that, in between that and everything else, they've
and
got
you're on Facebook too, so.
They got my ID. Yeah. I'm out there and I'm trying to do the right thing, but also we need red flag laws. And so people agree about background checks, red flag laws, and closing the gun show loopholes. Those are three things we can do. And then we have to study gun violence as the public health safety crisis that it is. And for years there was the Dickey Amendment, which prevented the CDC from studying gun violence. But now Congress said, oh yeah, you can study it, but they didn't give them money. And they need to have money to study it. It's not
going to happen without funding.
Yeah. Parkland, we've had too many tragedies. I've met some of the Parkland parents. I helped organize with the kids in Hickory for their March for Our Lives, which they inspired me, and I marched with them. I have one daughter who has had to hide twice from a shooter at Chapel Hill. Once when there was an armed robbery when they were there for their class orientation, and they were scuttled and hurried down into the basement of the student union. And then another time she called in her class, and teachers, they were all hiding. And for 15 minutes, I talked to her on her cell phone because she didn't know what was going on. Yeah. And that's not okay. And that hit home at UNCC, So these are serious issues, but they're issues that we can come together on and find some common solutions. And that's where it comes back to fear of loss. It just can't be all or nothing. We have to bridge. And that's really what my platform is. It's bridging differences and building bridges.
Well, let's discuss that for a minute. I think most people would agree. It seems like there's a really big chasm right now between both parties, right?
Yes.
And so, how do you start building? I don't know, repairing those relationships, or building that bridge again to get some sort of unity between both sides of the aisle instead of just walls going up right away.
It has to do with civil discourse. I think that's the key. We have to be able to communicate with both sides. We have to say, we can agree to disagree, but we can talk about things and we can find some common ground. And not only are we put against each other between us and another candidate, but we're dealing with the media. And when you have something like Fox News where that's the only place the president will talk and he's keeping out the other media, people need to say, wait a minute. Something's not right here. And it's not supposed to be skewed. We don't have state media. We are not that country. We are better than that. And so a lot of times I tell people you're going to have to change the channel. And they're like, oh, do I have to watch CNN? And I'm like, you know what? Watch ABC on Monday. Watch CBS on Tuesday. Get the BBC on Wednesday. Watch Fox News on Thursday. But try a smorgasbord like that. Try that for a couple weeks. And then you'll see what you're missing.
Right. That's a good idea to have just kind of a day of the week be specific type of outlet and in theory at least, right? That's going to give you a rounded perspective.
And it should make people, they have to think about it that way. I mean, there's news stations all over the world. Pick 7 different ones and try it a couple times.
Question about your Facebook group. So it's called Rational Republicans, right?
Yes.
As you mentioned. Wondering how or if that's come up in conversation at all since you're running as a Democrat.
It does.
Has that been well received or has it created confusion? Like I could see it could go both ways and
I think it makes me the more electable candidate because I have been on both sides and I can see both sides.
Right.
And I am very proud to be a Democrat and I think my values align there.
Yeah.
But I think it helps me have a discussion with both sides. And it was funny because like at the Martin Luther King March, when I was marching in Asheville the other week, somebody came up to me and they said, "Hey, are you the Democratic lady who's running for Congress who used to be a Republican?" And I said, "Yes." And he goes, "Oh yeah, you're going to be our Trojan horse." And I was like, it opens up conversation. And the other thing it does is when I'm on the street and I don't know if someone's a Democrat or a Republican, but if I'm handing out literature and I say, "Here, please vote for me. Here's my card," and they'll say, the first thing they always say to me is, "Are you a Democrat or a Republican?" And I say, "I'm a Democrat." And if they're a Democrat, they're happy and they take my card. And if they're a Republican, the first thing they want to do is push my hand away and say, "You're a socialist. You're part of the squad." And I say, "Not so fast. I used to be a Republican and I actually actively switched to the Democratic Party." And then they're like, "Well, why did you do that?" But then we have a conversation and it does break the ice. And it's something to say, I can tell them about the Electoral College. And I met somebody on Monday down in Murphy who is a Republican candidate for an office. And they asked me questions. And I told them about the Electoral College and things. And they were like, "Give me your signs. I'm going to put them up for you." I mean, it does cross those lines. And I know I've reached those people before and I will reach them again and I will treat people with civility.
No, I think makes a lot of sense. You're going to have a lot more context. And forget where the quote's from is, I'm not going to even pretend to remember. It's like, right? It's keep your friends close and your enemies closer or whatnot. So not that you've got enemies, but it's that whole thing. Like you really understand whoever you're going to be running against. You've been there, so you really know what the language is and really understand how to balance out issues on either end.
And people intuitively know what's right and what's wrong, and people want to do what's right.
Right.
And those are the people we got to reach.
Yeah. Well, as we're wrapping up, I've been asking this because just been very curious if you've had any like favorite moments of the campaign trail or any specific things that just stand out to you. I've just been like, wow, I would have never expected, but like that was kind of special.
Monday was great. The guy, was Monday? Monday was the one that Republican candidate. Yeah, and he's like, "Let me put your signs out." But before we did wrap up, I just wanted to tell you something that I thought, 2 things that were important about real estate.
Okay, please, yes.
One is the internet. Western North Carolina needs internet. Frontier's going out of business. I have older people who say to me, if I fall or I have a heart attack, I have to drive 7 miles to get a cell signal to call 911. And they are terrified of being alone, that they can't even get that. Kids can't do their homework. The homework is the same across North Carolina for the most part, but the children in Western North Carolina have to compete with the kids in Asheville and the kids in Charlotte and the kids in Raleigh. And parents need to be able to work from home. And they can't if they don't have internet. And we have a lot of areas just because of the terrain that we need help. And after the 2008 financial crisis, there was recovery money that came out, and the city of Chattanooga actually got some of that money that was federal incentive money to help, and they gave every single person in Chattanooga access to the internet. And that is what I would like to see us do. I would like to fight for us to have internet on a local level, and it affects people's values of their home. There are people in Lake Lure that can't sell their home because they don't have internet.
Right.
And I know I only have internet in Fairview because I begged the Skyrunner guy to climb higher in the tree, and then I begged him to cut a couple branches, and he's like, "I'm not supposed to do that. I'm like, but please, I need internet,
Yeah.
And he was able to get the line of sight. So there are things that we can do for that. And then the second thing I wanted to say about real estate is that last April, I had a wonderful experience going with the National Association of Realtors with NAR to Washington, D.C. There were hundreds of real estate agents who descend on Washington every April, and they call them the Hill Visits. And people just walk the halls of the Cannon Building and go from congressperson to congressperson. And you know what? It was so powerful because there are things that are important to real estate agents. When I tell you I work with Trad Commercial, I'm an independent contractor, and independent contractors need health insurance, And so there are things. And then the other thing that's happening is we have fires, which is part of, the biggest risk we have from the climate change are fires here in Western North Carolina.
Yeah, we've had them.
Yes, Lake Lure and then Gatlinburg, you saw everything that happened there. I mean, that is a huge risk. The Collider, UNCA, they've all said, be careful, be wary. We have a serious fire risk. But we also, in North Carolina on the coast, have floods. And we have the hurricanes, and that affects real estate agents. Flooding, and even in Asheville, there's been flooding. And in Marshall, when that river floods up, it covers the island down there. That's really serious, and those have serious ramifications for our clients as real estate agents. So there are things that we can do, that we can ask for help from the federal government to give incentives for real estate agents. And there was nothing more powerful than seeing hundreds of realtors go from door to door to door. And I tell people, the people who work in Congress, the people who they employ, they work for us.
Yeah.
We pay the taxes. I pay taxes, and I pay more taxes than Amazon, by the way. And I bet you do too.
Yeah.
and
unless we're using their same CPAs, I think that's probably the case.
Yes. Yeah. And what are those people doing in those offices? I mean, if they're working fine, but they've got staff and they can make time to talk to us, they can make time to make the world better for us. And when they're sitting back there, I saw them, they're sitting there eating their sandwich, they're having lunch, but they're keeping us out in the hall. And, they had to open the door because we can wait. And so I just want people to know that I want Western North Carolina and District 11 to send me to Congress. You send me to Congress, I am going to be transparent, and I want you to come with me. I want you to come with me to Raleigh. I will walk the halls with you, and I will come to any county, anytime, and meet with people. Gone are the days, gone need to be the days when Mark Meadows didn't meet with a soul, and when Patrick McHenry said he would only meet with people one time a year in August, and he did it between the hours of 9 to 5, so working people couldn't go, and he did it at some fire station that only allowed 200 people in the room so that people couldn't fill up the room, because he would make them wait outside and say, sorry, it's too busy. That's not okay. As a congressperson, and you're a congresswoman, I'm going to work for you, and I want us to have that open dialogue.
Yeah, open door policy is always important, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Where do people get in contact with you? Follow your campaign, get involved, however they see fit.
Yeah, it's Gina Collias for Congress.com. And Gina is Gina, Collias is C as in cat, Olli, A as in apple, S as in Sam. So that's COLLIAS. Gina Collias for Congress.com.
Yeah,
and
we'll include
one other
the
thing.
links
Thank
as
you.
well. Oh, yes.
And I was just going to say, my mother-in-law was born and reared in Asheville and went to St. Genevieve's, if anybody remembers that, because that's the land that was given to AB Tech.
Oh.
And
I don't know that name at all. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had the Patton Avenue kitchen candy, my husband's grandfather and his two uncles, in the 20s. They had Biltmore wine shop. They had the Patton Avenue cigar store, which is where the Thirsty Monk is now.
Okay.
That was the bar my husband's grandfather ran from 1937 to 1957. And when you mention soccer, they ran the concession stand at Recreation Park.
Oh,
and back then they used to have a Ferris wheel and an elephant.
Huh.
And John Edgar told me the elephant's name was Harriet.
Wow, I think people who've got those deep roots to Asheville, I was like, always stories. I'm like, I did not know that about it. So, well, thank you, Gina, so much for taking some time.
Thank you. This was a real pleasure to come here, and
Yeah.
I thank you for being positive and wanting people to be engaged and informed.
Yeah, no, it's super important. So as a reminder, if you guys are tuning in, if this conversation resonated with you, if you think somebody else needs to hear about Gina, please share it with them. Get out to vote, share it with your friends. And as a reminder, if you haven't listened in, we've done our best to try to get as many of the candidates who are running, both at the local and the state level, on the show. So tune in, make your decisions, and get out and vote.
Thank you.